Story 1. The things I love most in life are freedom, sleep, downtime, and money. Only jail and parenthood take away all four, so I try to avoid both as much as possible. Story 2. I do not have children for many reasons. Caretaker anxiety that would greatly strain my health, a short temper I do not want to impose on a child, and most importantly, I earn $14 per hour and live in a two-bedroom, one-bathroom home with another person. I cannot afford to have children even if I wanted them. Story 3. I like money, freedom, and sleep. I would hate pregnancy and giving birth. Having children in general would also be difficult. Story 4. I wanted a family and had the time and money to comfortably include children in my life without sacrificing everything else I enjoyed about being alive. I had a partner who shared my values and also wanted to raise children and provide the world with kind, educated, and funny people to keep it going after we are gone. We both think our lives are richer for the experience and have really enjoyed the time we have spent together as a family. Story 5. I do not want my body to go through pregnancy, and I also do not want to be responsible for another human when I can barely manage my own adult responsibilities. I do not even want to think about getting children ready for school in the morning. I want to be able to sleep in. I also have many things I want to learn and experience, which I value more than having a child. To each their own. Story 6. With 8 billion people on the planet, the species is not starved for my contribution. More time to spend with my nieces and nephews. Story 7. I like freedom more than I like children. I also come from a family with emotional negligence and emotional abuse, and I am still working through my own issues. I do not want to transfer this trauma to the next generation. As of now, I do not think that from an emotional standpoint I would be fit to be a mother. Even after healing, I am not sure whether I would want children. Story 8. I met a really wonderful person who I knew would be a great father, and I had always pictured myself as a mother. We were together 5 years before we had children and had done a lot of the fun things we wanted to do. We were financially stable and owned our own home. Having children is exhausting and expensive but also fun and lovely. My childhood was difficult, and I love having a happy family. Story 9. Pregnancy and childbirth look difficult. I do not want to put my body through that. Also, I am not interested in raising children. Story 10. I just did not want to do the work of raising children. Pregnancy never scared me. I figured if drunk teenagers can do that, so can I. However, the day-to-day actual work of raising a child never appealed to me. It is too much work. Maybe I will get a pet one day, but that seems like a lot too. Story 11. I had to seriously focus on my career, and many men had an issue with that. They wanted me to be more of a traditional wife. I would have been very miserable. It seems like a lot of men just want a sex doll, mother, and slave. Story 12. I am a natural nurturer. I love taking care of things much bigger than I will ever be. I live to be somebody's safe space to provide and to protect. I find joy in little moments, helping a new soul find their way in the world. I enjoy being their teacher because it makes me better myself and step up my knowledge. In turn, it makes me a better person overall. I used to get home from work feeling unfulfilled, with nothing to do. I played video games, smoked, vaped, went through cases of beer, ate unhealthily, and did whatever I wanted. I thought that was living life to the fullest. I always had an uneasy feeling. I knew I could do more to better myself but didn't know where to start. When I found out I was pregnant, I quit all of my bad habits, became more focused on my health for the sake of my unborn baby. She is 6 months old now, and watching her learn, smile, eat, go on nature walks, and being her safe place made me feel like I belong. Out of both my husband and me, I am the one who can calm her down when nothing else works. Feeling her go from worked up, screaming, to melting into my arms, whimpering away the last of her tears makes me feel like a superhero. That is my reason why I personally chose to have children. Story 13. I was a child myself and saw what the world was like, how hard my mother worked, and how petty people can be. To be honest, there were hundreds of little things that added up to me vowing never to be a mother. I am in my late 50s now and have never once regretted being child-free. Story 14. I do not have a particular desire to have children and feel it would be too risky to have children just to see if it suits me. I am not motherly and am afraid my temperament and sensory issues would make parenting difficult. I could not handle the guilt and stress of being a bad parent. I am worried about the state of the world and whether financial stability is achievable for me, as I do not have a wealthy support system. In general, my support system is not wide enough. Story 15. Reason 1. My mother always made it apparent how much she did not enjoy being a mother when I was growing up. Reason 2. I was diagnosed with cancer very young, at 25 years old, and could not have children afterward. Reason 3. I enjoy my life very much the way it is. I do whatever I want, whenever I want, and do not want to give that up. Story 16. I didn't choose. Life chose for me. My partner and I cannot have children, so that is that. However, I am quite content because I have the freedom to do what I want when I want and have very few financial worries. My partner has a large family. They all have children, and their children now have children. No one ever has any free time, money, or even owns their own homes, except us. I see them struggle in many ways, and I am actually quite happy with the way my life is. Also, childbirth sounds and looks horrific, and everyone I know who has been through it always confirms this. Story 17. I don't have children. I do not think of it as a choice. I did and do wish that I could be a parent. The opportunity never presented itself. If you cannot get a date, how do you get to a place where you can have children? Story 18. I was diagnosed with cervical cancer at 19 and lupus at 25. Having children was not possible for me. Instead, I have worked with at-risk youth for over 20 years. That has been enough for me. Story 19. I have children, but they are grown. That said, I would not have children in today's world. Our political leaders have failed us, and too many people have given up on critical thinking. Society in the United States is breaking down and drifting toward fascism. I would not bring a child into this kind of future. As for my children, they do not plan on having children either, and I am completely fine with that. Story 20. Growing up, I had a difficult childhood and believed the world was harsh for allowing it to happen. I did not want to bring a child into such a world. However, my perspective changed as I went through college and started living on my own. I fell in love. She was not planned, but she has probably saved my life countless times over the past 26 years. She is the best thing I ever did. I do not deserve her. She is the kindest, sweetest, and most genuine person I have ever met. I thank God for every second He allows her to walk this earth. Story 21. I would have to stop taking my antidepressants to have a viable pregnancy, along with the fear of passing this depression on. Story 22. Children do not seem fun at all. I have never wanted them, but honestly, watching most of my friends have them only to become shells of the people they once were because they have already been used up by their 6- and 7-year-olds does not look enjoyable. I would rather sleep late and continue enjoying my life with my partner. Story 23. I have not had a partner with whom I felt comfortable having children. It also helps that I have nephews and cousins. Story 24. I did not choose exactly. I just never found the right partner and was never someone who absolutely had to have children. Story 25. Because I wanted children and had, against my expectations, met all of my necessary criteria to be willing to have and raise them. Unfortunately, I made that decision during the Obama administration when I still had a lot of hope for the future. If I had foreknowledge of everything that has happened in the last 10 years, I would not have had children at all. Therefore, I cannot blame millennials who have given up on ever having any, nor Generation Zers who do not even want to entertain the idea. Story 26. I've always thought in some way I am broken or just odd, so I have never had a serious relationship with another person. Besides biology, I think parenting should be a team effort for resources and time if possible. So, children never entered the picture for me, and now I am 60. It is the paradox of really thinking about it and not doing it versus people who do not think about it and just reproduce. Story 27. Between being raised by an unfit parent and being friends with someone who could have antisocial personality disorder, I'm good on all that. I also very much enjoy my freedom in whatever regard that entails. Story 28. I am single and have no desire to find a partner. I like money and cannot afford to raise a child. I enjoy traveling alone. I cannot imagine taking care of another person. I have a medical condition that would be negatively affected by pregnancy, and I am not willing to risk my health for another human. Most importantly, the world is in a difficult state and it is only getting worse, so why bring another person into this situation? Story 29. All the reasons people have children do not apply to me. I feel that having children is something you need to carefully consider and be certain you want. In contrast, willingly choosing not to have children is simply the absence of all that. Story 30. Way too big a responsibility. I got stressed out having to take care of a dog. No way am I suited to take care of a child. Story 31. Note that the child-free people can articulate actual reasons because they thoughtfully considered whether or not they wanted children, while the parents say things like, I just always saw myself as a parent, because they simply followed the life script instead of critically thinking about this important life decision. Story 32. I got pregnant and did not have it in me to abort the pregnancy. Then I decided to be the best mother I could, and she is happy with what I have accomplished. Now I do not have a womb anymore to make sure it will not happen again. Story 33. 1. I like sleep. 2. I cannot deal with children being chaotic in public. 3. I like having money for myself. 4. I do not want to have anyone dependent on me for their survival. 5. I have never wanted children. Story 34. My wife and I both like children, had great childhoods with loving and supportive parents, and we are in a good place financially. We have enjoyed raising our 2 daughters, now 21 and 16, and watching them grow into mature and responsible people. My wife enjoyed pregnancy, aside from the morning sickness, which was really bad with our first child. We would both do it again. My only regret is that we did not start our family sooner. Parenting is not for everyone, and you should only become a parent if you are certain you are ready for it. But it has been a wonderful experience for us. Story 35. I would rather not take on a heavy and lengthy responsibility that would compromise a comfortable, healthy, and tranquil living situation. Nor do I desire to have a child. Story 36. I do not like them enough to be around them all the time. I also kill succulents, so a child would not do well with me. Story 37. I am scared of the pain of carrying and giving birth to a child. I also do not think I have it in me to be the parent a child deserves. I do not want them to be neglected or to make myself miserable because I would have to change who I am if I had a child. Story 38. My mother was firmly against the idea of me dating throughout my teenage years because she was afraid my sister and I would become pregnant. She gave daily lectures about the challenges of being a parent and always said to me, I will not support you if you become a teenage mother. All of that, combined with my lack of interest in children, has completely turned me off from having my own. Story 39. I honestly thought that I was infertile and had accepted it. I got pregnant unintentionally and realized that I would regret it for the rest of my life if I had an abortion and was never able to get pregnant again. I have a lot of caregiving energy, and I am happy to pour it into my children now rather than people who did not necessarily deserve it. Having something to live for and a reason to keep going has done me a lot of good. I love watching them grow into their own people. Story 40. Because there is no reason to have children other than what society teaches you to believe. Ask any parent what their dream day looks like and the majority will describe a kid-free day. Additionally, there is nothing welcoming in American society that would influence me to become a father. I enjoy the freedom and disposable income one am accustomed to. Story 41. I could list hundreds of reasons, and I did do that one time to show my parents, but honestly, if I really wanted kids, I can see myself looking past and pushing through all those concerns, risks, and difficulties. Where there is a will, there is a way. So the ultimate answer is, I just do not want kids. I do not have the will, not even in the slightest. Story 42. Partly childhood trauma and medical reasons, but also I just enjoy my freedom and money and do not want to give that up for a child. Story 43. I would rather not have children than to have children while broke or without the right partner by my side. Story 44. My husband and I felt comfortable in our home and our finances. We do not make much money, but we also do not spend much. We had been enjoying our quiet routine for a few years. We both knew at the same time that we were ready for a new chapter, a new challenge, and new adventures. We both handle tantrums every day where we work, so that does not scare us. Less free time does not scare us either. I guess you could say we just feel ready. 11 weeks along now. Story 45. There are a number of reasons I did not want children. I absolutely did not want that responsibility. The idea of being pregnant is revolting to me. Do not misunderstand. I am not revolted by pregnant people. The idea of me being pregnant is revolting. The things I wanted out of life and still want out of life preclude having children. Just because I could have children does not mean I should have children. I do not necessarily dislike babies and children. I have met a few perfectly delightful ones, but I think children should be deeply wanted and not brought into the world just because someone wanted grandchildren to carry on a name or thought that was what was expected of them. Story 46. Did not want to go through pregnancy. I like children in theory, but I do not really want to be pregnant, and going through childbirth does not seem like fun. Story 47. The odds of me having a child with a mental illness are 97%. Also, I do not see myself as a parent. Story 48. No aspect of having or raising children ever appealed to me. As a woman, you are the default parent, and many men in my generation are okay with having a baby mama and not wanting to be a full-time parent. Money would make the stress worse, and I like sleep. Seeing everything unfold in the United States with respect to reproductive rights makes me incredibly happy that I had my tubes tied 11 years ago. Story 49. Having children genuinely does not interest me. I have many qualities that I believe would make me a great parent, but no thank you. I am just not interested. Story 50. I don't like children. It is like when you do not like a specific food and people keep saying, no, you should totally eat raw tomatoes. I know you say you do not like them or want them in your food. You have never enjoyed them in any capacity in any food, but everyone else loves their tomatoes, so you should totally have them too. It is just what people do. They eat tomatoes and love them. Some people do not want tomatoes on their salads. Some people do not want children in their lives. No one ever tells me I will change my mind about tomatoes. I am not quite sure why people still, at age 39, tell me I will change my mind about kids. Story 51. I am not interested in children. Many things do not interest me. Bottle collecting, keeping tropical fish, knife making, yodeling. Children are on that list. Story 52. Do not want to expose any potential children to a life of slavery under post-collapse capitalism during the climax of a climate crisis, if they even survive long enough to join the labor force at the age of 8. Story 53. It died already. The world has ended for me in the last 2 years, if this is true. So, I am accepting that it may only be 1 year old. Story 54. I chose my wife first because she was the most important part of my life. She was unable to have children, so I chose her over that. The joke is on me after she left me. Story 55. Taking care of another tiny human who cannot help themselves yet requires a lot, especially if something were to happen to me and my partner. Unfortunately, they would be in a very difficult situation. I do not think I could realistically leave a tiny human with my DNA behind on this planet. This does not even consider any genetic problems they might inherit from me and my partner, as I personally need to be tested for certain conditions already. Story 56. I had a partner for over 10 years, and we always said that we could have children once we owned a house and had a steady income. Well, those things have not happened yet, but we do have a lovely 2.5-year-old who completely changed my life for the better. Yes, I am tired sometimes, but it is not from drinking too much or being overworked. Story 57. My wife wants to have a career, and I had a rough childhood. Not your standard recipe for dual income, no kids, but that is the path we are on. Story 58. I knew I never wanted children since the day my aunt asked me to babysit when I was 12. I hated dolls but loved animals. The sound of crying babies makes me angry. I like peace and quiet. Misophonia, indeed. Story 59. Mostly, I just do not want to, and everything involved in parenting seems like torture with no respite to me. I mean, adding people to your house who are not already carefully pre-vetted for being low maintenance, to have them there constantly for 20 years, is absolutely not acceptable. I shudder at the very thought. Story 60. I had children because it was the accepted thing to do. I got married because it was the accepted thing to do. Fortunately for me, I am very happy with both decisions. I would not have done either if I had felt a real aversion to the choice. Story 61. Reasons people usually have children include developing deep relationships and having a family to share love and life with. Reasons people give for not having children include not valuing parent-child relationships, saving money, avoiding inconvenience, unresolved childhood trauma, and other factors. You can have a great life either way, but only if you listen internally to what you want and the life you want to create. As a side note, fewer people are having children nowadays, so it is becoming more common among wealthy individuals because those with money do not need to give anything up when they have children. I suspect children will become a new status symbol in the next 10 to 20 years as birth rates decline. Story 62. I have always wanted children but saw how troubled the world is. I could not find it in myself to bring someone else into that. I am open to adopting or fostering someday when I am able to. Story 63. Though my husband and I are not totally closed off to the idea, it is 90 to 10 no to yes. Having children is not a necessity. It is part of the life milestone messaging drummed into our heads from birth, nothing more than a cultural script. I like my life. I have had the opportunity to live abroad, travel, and now I have time to focus on healing from my own myriad traumas. At no point do I look at my life and think, if only I had a child to focus 100% of my time and energy on. I can only begin to imagine how much love I would have for my own child. My life would unquestionably be dedicated to them as it should be, but I do not know if that is what I want my life to be about. There are so many others in need of such time and dedication who are already here. I love being an aunt. I have taught all ages from kindergarten to university and have enjoyed teaching children and supporting their growth. I enjoyed teaching younger kids more than I expected. I just do not feel a strong desire to have my own child, and I feel like for such a life-altering decision, you really need to be quite sure. Story 64. I have a chemical brain imbalance and no thyroid, as I was born without one. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which worsens with each generation it is passed to. I am also autistic and queer. Having children knowing all of this would be extremely selfish on my part. Additionally, no one would realistically want to be close to me. Story 65. A combination of money and freedom. Probably money, but every time I babysit my nephew, I cherish freedom. Story 66. Reasons were endless, but here are some. No desire to have children. Both my husband and I firmly believe both parties should want to have children, and each person should be at least 90% sure. We were in the low single digits of wanting children. Overpopulation, the world does not need more humans. We are already harming the earth as it is, so there is no reason to add to the problem. Freedom, both financial freedom and the ability to do things we enjoy. The costs of raising children are astronomical. Ultimately, there was no desire to have children. They are a lifetime commitment, and hopefully people want to raise them to be productive members of society. That is a lot of work, and quite frankly, we are not sure many parents are raising future productive members of society right now. Story 67. I am child-free. I was removed from my parents' custody as a child, so I fear repeating that experience. Poor genetics mainly related to mental health. The financial cost and lack of financial stability. My husband did not want more children after his first and had a vasectomy before we started dating. I have several mental health issues that I am still working through and do not have the mental capacity to properly care for myself, let alone children. I frequently forget to eat, use the bathroom, and schedule healthcare appointments. I trust myself to care for a dog and do a decent job ensuring he goes to the veterinarian regularly and has everything he needs. I occasionally forget some things, but he lets me know if I forget to feed him or if he needs to go outside. Story 68. I can barely take care of myself without feeling completely overwhelmed. There is no way I can take care of another human being full-time while simultaneously caring for myself. Story 69. I am the child in my life. I never got to enjoy what childhood had to offer after my father died before I was even 10. Now I spend my life nurturing that hurt little girl and letting her do everything she was not able to. Story 70. I wasn't particularly interested in having children, but I wasn't against it either. It really depended on whose children I would be having. I did not meet anyone with whom I would want to have children when I was financially stable and secure enough to do so. Therefore, no children. I do not mind at all. Story 71. I was supposed to be child-free and took great care to prevent pregnancy because I knew that my choice would never be termination if it happened, despite being very pro-choice politically. My birth control failed and I now have a daughter. I wanted to be child-free because of the great risks to my health that pregnancy would and did cause. I also wanted to live life without being a tiny human snack. But now that she's here, she's the best thing we ever did despite her not being planned. My body is wrecked and I almost died, but I will never regret her. She's brought so much joy to our lives, though we will never treat her as if she has to be our source of happiness. Story 72. I never had the desire to have children. Then I dated someone with joint custody of his child. We lived together for a little over a year, and that really sealed the deal. I thought it was just that I enjoyed money, time, and freedom, but it turns out I enjoy many other things that children take away from you. Story 73. All I have wanted since I was a child was to be a mother. My partner and I cannot wait to start having children, but it is not quite the right time. We currently live in different states. Story 74. I love my family of origin's traditions and experiences, and I wanted to pass those on. I have always loved and felt very comfortable with children, probably because I was the oldest of my siblings. Whenever I see a child, I want to spend time with them by default. Some caveats. I was old enough to remember when my youngest brother was a baby, so I waited a long time to start a family because I knew exactly how much work it would be and wanted to be sure I was ready. I have also done a lot of therapy and reading to try to avoid passing on the mistakes my parents made with me, which in turn their parents made with them, and so on. This process is time-consuming and hard. Pregnancy was also awful. I do not recommend those 10 months at all. But it is only 10 months, and it is so worth it. My child is kind, curious, and funny, and their smile lights up the room. The time I get to spend with them is the best part of my day. Story 75. Since I have memory, I do not want to be a mother. I have 2 dogs that I love so much I cannot even explain the feeling. I spend a lot of money and time on them, so commitment is not a problem. I just do not enjoy kids. They need a lot of energy and money, so you really have to want them to succeed in raising a child. Story 76. It just never resonated with me. I am fortunate to come from parents and family who did not pressure or guilt me, or make me feel like there was something wrong with it. The guilt and pressure I see many people grappling with, and hopefully coming to terms with, looks very difficult. It is hard enough to deprogram what society has ingrained. I imagine the relentless question of when I am getting grandchildren would make that exponentially harder. Story 77. I'm a child-free stepmom of 3. Growing up, I never wanted kids. I had a difficult childhood and never wanted that for my future children. After I moved out of my family home, I experienced baby fever. I realized I did want kids, but I wanted to be mentally well for them. I wanted to work on myself to become the strongest I could to protect my future children. However, I had a mental health breakdown not long after, and I haven't fully recovered yet. My boyfriend has 3 children with his ex-wife. I absolutely love those kids. Between my mental health and the 3 children already needing care, I decided not to pursue having biological children. I'm already 32, and it's not an easy route for me. I also have Hashimoto's disease, which adds to my choice to stay child-free. I inherited many issues from my family, and I believe it's best to focus my love on the children already here rather than bring another into the world who may struggle like I have. I wouldn't wish this life on anyone, so I won't have children because of that. But I will love my stepchildren forever. I consider them my kids. The two youngest even call me Mama. The oldest has slipped a few times and called me Mom, and it always fills my heart with joy. Story 78. I have severe depression. I have experienced it since I was 12, but it was not properly diagnosed until my early 20s. I do not want to pass this condition on to anyone. I do not really like children either. Story 79. Being childless for me began as a way to break cycles. I did not want to raise a child the way I had been treated. As I got older and knew myself more, I realized it was the right decision because I do not do well without enough sleep and I get overstimulated by noise. Story 80. I was unexpectedly trapped by my ex who claimed she could not have children and stopped using birth control. Fortunately, I love my children deeply and would not trade them for anything. However, I would have retired about 5 years ago in my early 40s if I had not fathered their mother's children. Story 81. I cannot stand children for more than an hour at a time. Also, I enjoy my peace and children often prevent that. Story 82. Child-free. I have never wanted children in my life. The first time I ever said I was never having children, I was 6 years old, and it was after my mom briefly explained that children are born through the vagina. As I got older and realized how awkward I am with young children, including when I was still a young child myself, it only strengthened my resolve. Not to mention, I would not make a good parent in the slightest. I am currently 35 and spending time with my friends who have children is really effective birth control. That, and the fact that I finally had my fallopian tubes removed. Story 83. I would not be a good mother. I have absolutely no maternal instinct whatsoever. I look at a child and feel nothing in the way most women say they do. I also have a very short temper that could traumatize a child, which I do not want to ever put a child through. For my own sake and for the sake of my non-existent children, I will not be having them. Story 84. My genetics are poor. I feel alienated by the concept of relationships, and I am too financially unstable to take care of myself, let alone a child. Story 85. To be honest, I did not have much of a choice about having children. I consented to protected sex as a 15-year-old girl, and my then-boyfriend poked holes in the condom. My choice in the matter was to keep my baby and become a mother at 16. It has not been easy by any means, but that child helps me be a better person, and I love them so much for that. I had my second baby at 23, and both are my entire world. I will protect and love them fiercely. Story 86. I didn't feel truly grown up until I had my child. I wanted to experience life through a tiny human's eyes. Parenting, to me, is the apex of the human experience. Story 87. 1. I have never experienced the baby hunger that my friends talked about. I did not understand the reason for having children. I am very sensitive to sounds. A crying baby is like torture, similar to nails on a chalkboard. To me, I was poorly parented and am not sure if I would make a good parent. 50% of my family and extended family have mental illnesses, including bipolar disorder, addiction, depression, and schizophrenia. I would not wish that on anyone. Story 88. I chose to have a child because it happened. I fell in love with a difficult person 20 years ago, and he got me pregnant. I am still very much in love with that same person, and he loves me too. It will be a whole new adventure as our baby turns 18 this year and figures out her own way, or not. We will always be a team no matter how old she is. If I were a young adult today, I would decide not to have children, to be honest. The cost, worry, and responsibility that come with it are insurmountable. I would love to have grandchildren, but I am frank and honest with my daughter about thinking long and hard before making such a decision. I love her more than life itself and tell her so, but I also try to be real with her, which is something my parents and community did not share with me. Story 89. I think the default should be child-free, and you should have some good reasons and a well-thought-out long-term plan to have children. Story 90. I am 35 now and decided when I was 20 that I did not want children. I never saw any benefits to having them. My friends my age have 1 or 2 children, but I have never felt like I missed out on motherhood or that feeling. I believe that feeling does not necessarily come from giving birth. When I got married, I told my partner that I did not plan on having children, but if they wanted to, I would give my best to be a good parent. Fortunately, my partner also does not want children. It has been 8 years since we married, and we are happy. In the past 15 years, I have never once felt that I made the wrong decision. Story 91. I love freedom, sleeping in, having time to enjoy with my husband, peace, and a tidy home. Above all, it feels cruel to me to bring a child into this burning, war-torn, miserable planet. It is simply an awful place for a child. Story 92. I chose to start a family and had my first child last year. I always wanted kids and knew when my husband and I were ready, we would have them. We waited until we were mentally, emotionally, and financially ready. Is it hard? Yes, of course. Do I regret it? No. Will I have more children? Yes, when I'm ready again. I found that having a child changed my perspective on life. Things that bothered me before now matter much less. My focus has shifted to what matters most, and I am much happier and feel fulfilled. Story 93. I became pregnant. I researched the abortion process and became afraid of dealing with it while traveling and living in my van, so I decided to continue the pregnancy. I had to return to a more conventional lifestyle, but everything has worked out wonderfully. Story 94. I always assumed I would have children. Becoming pregnant was not planned at that exact moment, but we were ready enough. Now I am a parent. Story 95. I got to 32, my husband and I were happily married, had traveled the world, all partied out, established in our careers, and were homeowners. I started to feel like my life was rudderless, void of true meaning. No amount of community work or hobbies was filling it. I've always been maternal because I work with young children and started to realize that I wanted my own baby. We tried and had our first child. It was like a light went on in a room I didn't even know existed. He gave us complete purpose. Now at 36, our second is 7 months old, and the last 4 years of my life have been the absolute best so far. I'm so glad we made the choice we did. It's not for everyone, but it was definitely for me. Story 96. My wife and I have an if it happens mentality. Right now, we are enjoying a child-free life. With a nephew on the way and several friends having children, we get our fix of having fun with kids, with the perk of handing them back at the end of the day. Story 97. I figured I did not need to be ready and that I would inevitably become ready for parenthood when it happened. I try, but I do not know if I am even ready now, and my child is nearly 4. Story 98. I had a great childhood and family life. I am a nurturing and loving person and absolutely love being my child's mom. Are there times that it is difficult? Yes. I occasionally miss the freedom and it can be financially draining, but I love watching my son grow and become his own person. That being said, I completely understand why people would not want children and think it is totally valid not to. Story 99. Mental illness and poverty. My instability will negatively impact the child. I have no maternal instinct, no child-rearing skills, no money. My work is wrecking my body. Everything is too expensive, and the world is going to hell. I am not putting a child through all that. Story 100. We cannot have biological children due to medical reasons and therefore looked into fostering a child. When we learned how much attention beyond normal the average foster child will need due to their circumstances, we decided we are not willing to sacrifice our mental health to that extent. No regrets. Story 101. I have always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, like my mother. I just knew. Now that I have children, it is the greatest gift of my life. There are times that have been difficult, but generally, they are the biggest joy of my life. The love they give me, and I give them, is unbreakable and unconditional. Story 102. Fear of childbirth. I like being alone a lot. Cannot stand loud noises, and children are loud. Just thinking about crying and screaming gives me anxiety. I have issues with being vulnerable and letting people in. Because of this, the children may end up being neglected emotionally, or I might resent them. I get overwhelmed easily. I would also be broke all the time and have many other reasons. Story 103. I am still a virgin, but one thing I will never want is a child. It is too much responsibility, and I prefer to enjoy things by myself. Additionally, if I were to have a child, my inability to deal with them would probably result in me being a terrible father. Story 104. I had a fabulous time in my 20s traveling and working overseas. I enjoyed going out and being free of responsibility. In my 30s, I wanted a new adventure. I saw the past fading as older relatives passed away, and I wanted to create a future by experiencing life and raising a child. I had a daughter. She has been a near constant joy, and I have never regretted having a child for a day. The love, the fun, and the uniqueness are incomparable. Story 105, child-free. I really do not want to be pregnant, give birth, or raise a child. Women often face many challenges. The odds that it will be rewarding or make me happy are too low. There is too much risk in all aspects. I would rather live my life and be happy instead of spending my best years trying to make sure I do not fail the human I decide to bring into this world. Story 106. I didn't exactly choose it. I wanted to be child-free, was told I was infertile, and never had a predictable period, so I went on the pill to make it predictable. Then, suddenly, I was almost halfway pregnant. I wouldn't change him for the world now that he's here, but it's hard, and I'm making sure he is my one and only. Story 107. Because I loved my significant other and decided that my own needs were less important than having a child, it has been the absolute best decision I ever made. The children are the best thing we ever did. I have also been able to have a well-paid career because my significant other and I are a team and have been able to juggle responsibilities. Seeing the children grow into nuanced, quirky, sensible individuals has been an absolute joy and humbling experience. For me, reading the various comments of child-free people makes me smile. When I was younger, it was simply called people who did not have children. Especially since, in one way or another, the children I invested so much in will end up looking after those who did not have children like their own children would have. Extra points because my family name and the endless biological continuum begun by my ancestors will continue, while others will end with them. Story 108. It seems like a lot of work. I am not partnered up, and I really do not want to do that alone. Mostly, I do not want children. I do not yearn for them. There was a time in my 20s when I wanted them because I was supposed to, but thankfully I did not. I look at people with baby bellies and tiny infants with clinical fascination, not an oxytocin rush. Story 109. My father was a terrible person, and I am too. I did not want to cause pain to a child. I am short-tempered and depressed all the time and would hate to take my anger out on a child. Story 110. I am mentally struggling because of how I grew up. I understand how easy it is to negatively impact a child, and I do not want to do that to any kid. I love children, and that is why I am not having any children. Story 111. Never had any real desire for it. I do not like to spend a lot of time around children. I do not envy the life of a parent at all, and I also do not want to be responsible for someone else's existence. Life is hard, and I do not want to make anyone else struggle. Story 112. I did not want to relive my childhood. I was also not sure I would be abusive or treat them the way I was treated. Story 113. It is the only way to break the cycle. I dog sat an untrained dog for a weekend recently and felt my patience completely drain. I would definitely be just like my mother if I had a child. Story 114. I do not have children because I am happy without them. I do not need children to be happy and fulfilled in life. Story 115. I am not responsible enough for myself, let alone a child. Having said that, I have also worked in childcare for over 30 years, so I have a lot of experience with children and do not think it is for me. I also want to spend my money on things I want. I have experienced much more than I would have if I had had children. Story 116. I am self-aware enough to know I would be a bad mother. There is no reason to bring more suffering into the world or put an even harder strain on our resources just to experience a rush of maternal hormones. I find that unpleasant. Story 117. Autism. My grandfather was not diagnosed, but we are certain he had it. He was neglectful to his family. My mother, I am even more certain, had it but was not diagnosed. She could not cope with the responsibility of being a parent. She struggled when we moved to a different home, could not connect with anyone, and felt misunderstood all the time. She fell into depression and got help, but it was too late. She was then medicated with antidepressants for years until she sought help again too late for physical complaints she had for months. 3 weeks after seeing the doctor, she died from cancer. She neglected herself and was only physically present in my life until she was gone. All of the care fell on my father's shoulders. I was different from other kids as well, very intelligent but also very vulnerable. I took everything literally and could not make friends. I was the first to receive an official diagnosis. I struggled throughout my childhood and seriously considered parenthood. However, I know that, like my mother, grandfather, and aunt, I would not be a good parent. Not because I would not love my children, but because I would have to give up my peace, calm, quiet, and for quite a while, my restful nights. Those are exactly the 4 things I need to stay sane. My child would heavily depend on the father while I tried my best, which would not be enough. I am glad I can take care of myself and, unlike my mother, have meaningful connections. Taking care of myself is enough. I cannot take on the responsibility of caring for another human being. Adding to that is the fear of passing it to the next generation. While my grandfather, mother, aunt, and I are all high-functioning, there is always the risk of having a child who is not. That child might never be able to be independent. The thought of carrying all the responsibility for a disabled adult child when I am 75 and fearing for their future when I am gone is distressing. I have huge respect for those who have no choice in the matter, but since there is already a significant chance of this gene passing on, I would rather not take the risk, especially knowing I would not make a good mother. Story 118. I thought I wanted children, and we tried fertility treatments to conceive. However, after deciding to stop trying and not having a child, we talk almost daily about how grateful we are to be child-free. The world is very challenging, and it is hard enough to manage my own life within it. Story 119. I did not choose to be child-free. Mother Nature gave us a double blow. Both of us are infertile. Story 120. I had my first child with my ex-husband because I thought 3 months in we were soulmates and he was my savior. We ended up both losing custody because we were too mentally ill to care for her. I decided to have a baby with my fiancé because, again, I thought we were soulmates and it was much better having unprotected sex. We're still together, and our child is so awesome and amazing. I still had postpartum psychosis, so luckily my fiancé was stable, and we had a better support system. 3 months after having my second child, I decided to get my tubes tied because I am not mentally stable when I have babies, and it's not fair to the babies to have a mother in and out of the psychiatric ward. Story 121. Because my mother told me at age 12 that I was going to have one just like her. I made up my mind that day that I was not going to have one. Story 122. Initially, I was an active drug addict. Then I had to get myself together in my late 30s. Now I am ready, but I am 42, so for me, the opportunity has passed. Story 123. Just observing mothers. They all look run down and always complain about feeling like a single parent as if they did not sign up for this. They know how society feels about motherhood, yet they still have multiple children to try and fill their day. I do not want any of that. Story 124. I have autism. I get overstimulated, and my first thought when I hear a crying baby is to get rid of it. I should not be around children, let alone have them. Children deserve the world, and I cannot and will not offer that. Story 125. I felt a primal urge to have children. I have always enjoyed caring for animals and children my whole life. Now, after having 2, I am so grateful I was able to bear them. I love them so much, and it is a level of purpose and happiness I was not able to obtain prior to having children. I have also combined my love of animals and children. They help me foster animals and care for our pets. My husband and I are financially comfortable and have a happy marriage. My children are fairly easy for the most part. I did struggle deeply with postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression, but I primarily blame it on post-traumatic stress disorder and a very difficult childhood. I have ended the cycle of violence, and that feels healing to me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.